Disclaimer, this presentation was produced and funded in whole with federal funds from the U.S. Department of Education under contract number GS 10F0112J with the American Institute for Research, AIR. Carolyn Limpila serves as the contracting officer's representative. The content of this presentation does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the U.S. Department of Education, nor does the mention of trade names, commercial products, or organizations imply endorsement by the U.S. government. With that, I'll hand it over to our moderator, Marcella.
Thanks everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Long, for that great welcome. We're excited to have you. Today's webinar is supporting part-time adult educators. I like this quote that our presenter shared. It's not the years, it's the mileage, from Indiana Jones. So I'm excited to have you with us. Today's May 25th, 2022. Let's get started. Today's session is part of our Universal Technical Assistance webinar series. For those of you who are not familiar with it, I want to share a little bit of information about this series. It's a monthly series on topics that matter most to the field, and its intent is to really support states in building their capacity in important areas. Of course, since many of our teachers are part-time, I think you'll really find this webinar incredibly useful. As Long mentioned at the beginning, the webinar is being recorded, and this and other webinars in this series are available on the Links YouTube channel. We had a couple of related resources we thought might be helpful for you that are available through Links that I wanted to share with you before we get started. The first one is within our Links resource collection. You can find items from the Teaching the Skills That Matter toolkit. The toolkit as a whole is also available to you using the link that Long just shared in the chat. You'll find there some ready-to-go lessons that are always helpful to teachers that are part-time because they don't always have the time to work and plan, and so it's just helpful to have something that they can use in the classroom. We also recommend that you check out our program management group within the Links community, and you have on the screen the QR codes to access the resource collection and the QR code to join a community group. So we encourage you to do that, to check out those two items. And with that, I want to go ahead and introduce our presenters. You don't need to hear from me. I want to get you with them as soon as possible. So first up, we have Gail Senese. If you're not familiar with her, she is the State Director for the Maine Department of Education's Adult Education. In the last several years, she's observed the state team making many positive changes in the professional development opportunities for instructors, and learners are really benefiting from these efforts. We also have with us today Amy Poland, who is the Professional Development Coordinator for the Adult Education team at the Maine Department of Education. She also coordinates the Maine College and Career Access Grant, which is a state grant that supports adult learners in their transitions to post-high school education and training. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Gail.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. And I'd just like to review kind of our goals for today. So we are going to share information about Maine's teacher workforce, which are primarily part-time folks, and the challenges that come with that, which you're probably no strangers to. We also want to just put a little bit of a highlight on some of the administrative and professional development strategies that we implement to support these part-time educators. But most importantly, though, Amy Poland and I are here with our presentation, we want to hear from you and receive your ideas for ways that you're supporting your part-time adult educators. So I hope that we can enjoy the time that we have together. So our next slide, Amy will introduce our little warm-up exercise.
Thanks, Gail. So we want to get a sense to start with the challenges that you're all facing with part-time adult educators. So we're going to use Menti, and I'm not sure if people have used Menti before. I know we've all been in this world of online engagement for the last couple of years. It's a great engagement app for online and in-person gatherings. And to access it, I have to actually, I'm going to stop share for a second and go to it for end my show. We're actually going to go to menti.com. And you can either go on your browser or you can scan the QR code with your phone, and it's going to ask you to enter the code 20861104. You'll click submit, and it's going to bring you to our first question. And you're going to keep this open because we are going to be using it in throughout the presentation today. So the first question we're asking is, what are the challenges of supporting part-time adult educators? And it should give you the option to add 3 words or phrases about the challenges that you're facing with supporting part-time adult educators. And it's going to give us a word cloud with the ideas that you're entering. So we'll give people a little bit of time to enter. And I love watching how this changes, because the items that are the largest are the ones that are being entered more often. So you can kind of see what's coming out at the center there. Give you like 1 more minute. Gail's going to speak to some of the ones that are kind of jumping out at the beginning, in the middle there.
We ready, Amy? Do you have
Yes. Yep.
All right.
We're ready.
So I'll just shout out some of those larger ones, and it was turnover came up really quickly, and retention, and then time. So I think that's has a lot to do with scheduling as well, and money. But for some of you who had some of the smaller ideas, I hope people took a chance to look at everything that had popped up, because no one's challenge is less important, even though it might only be happening to fewer people. So if you had any ideas on how to address some of those, we'd love to hear them in a few minutes when we have our wrap up near the end. So these were the challenges that Maine faces, and you can see that a lot of them were some of the big ones right in the Menti. We'll talk about scheduling, distance, turnover, expense, apathy, and lack of awareness. And in Maine, we wanted to challenge the challenges. We wanted to discover if they were real or if they were long-held perceptions, but that there might be other concerns related to professional development, but that we were just saying, well, like everybody, there's no time. We've heard it before. I can't schedule because no one's ever here and there's no time. But the reality we've come to realize is that we all really make time for the things that are valuable to us and for the things that are important. So we wanted to make sure that we were providing high quality professional development, that people would attend a PD offering and there would be buzz building about it, so that whenever possible, teachers would jiggle their schedules around, be willing to have the program provide a substitute for them so that they could participate. So we found that the better our PD got, the more relevant it was and responsive to their needs, that scheduling wasn't the big barrier that it had once been. Also, our local programs have started to have PD days built right into their calendars that enable people to attend local professional development opportunities when they would normally, in those blocks of time, they'd be maybe normally teaching. And also, this sounds like, why didn't you do this sooner, you people in Maine? But we were able to have a longer time frame for the calendar that we would distribute, so that our PD days were on people's calendars early in the school year, and then we would avoid conflicts with things that were happening locally. And I want to just admit, Maine is a large state and it's sparsely populated, so distance is a reality. Bringing our instructional teachers together, even in a central place, might require up to 5 hours of travel one way. So oftentimes they would have to have an overnight, which gets into that whole expense thing of professional development. So in response, we have really stepped up our efforts, even before COVID, to use technology to help us address the issue of distance. And so some of the things we did, and I'm sure you are also doing similar things, but we've had good success, was before COVID, we would have still have central professional development. People like to gather. People actually like to come to the cities, our big city of Portland with 60,000 people, to do shopping. So that was always a draw if people could come to Portland and shop. But also, we would have on site, but then we would often send content experts out to the regions so that people would not have to keep coming in, but we would send the professional development leads out to where they were. And then with using more reliance on technology, would oftentimes actually have breakout groups. So we would be meeting centrally. The people in the outlying areas would be coming in via technology. We weren't all Zooming then. We were using different forms of conference platforms. And then we would group them in breakout rooms so they could talk to each other in different programs and share their ideas. So that's how we would try to address distance. Turnover, that was another big one in the Menti, and we're going to talk about that. Yes, the reality, teachers leave us. Just when they seem to be hitting their stride, they leave us. But this brings us back to the Indiana Jones quote. It's not the years. And in the movie, he says, honey, but I don't know all of you that well. So I'm just going to say, it's not the years, it's the mileage. We've taken that attitude. It's not how long we have these teachers. It's what we can put into them right from the get-go, that we honor the enthusiasm that has brought them to work for adult education, that we welcome them, we help them feel that they're part of a community that's responsive and aware of their needs, and then we let them know all the professional development that will be available to them to help them transition for many into a new career field. And Amy can talk about our use of Schoology, where we have other opportunities available. So yes, it's a real thing, but we try to make the very best of their time with us. And oftentimes they'll come back, but we don't, we want them to know they're welcomed for as long as we can have them, and that we value them as colleagues. So then there's the expense. And this gets tied into turnover and scheduling if you're going to just keep repeating professional development so you can try to reach everyone. It's discouraging and expensive to plan opportunities and have a few people turn up, and then most people don't show. So we've really looked into that situation and how we can try to overcome it. Though we consistently had heard over the years that teachers won't come in the summertime, that seemed like the best time for us to plan professional development opportunities. Most of our teachers aren't on contract all summer long, so they were available, but we were told that no one would come. So we decided we were going to challenge that. And was it a perception or reality? We developed a budget for a summer program. Our first one was several years ago. And think about this. Who wouldn't want to gather with their colleagues, sleep in unair-conditioned dorm rooms, go into shower stall rooms and common bathrooms, eat dorm food, and get immersed in college and career readiness standards. Now that was our first one. So we wanted to make sure that there was a little kick to this. So we had a pirate theme, and we went all out with the pirate theme. We were all in our costumes, our eye patches, our jewels, and there was a lot of pirate talk, arr, to greet people when they arrived. So we really wanted it to be an experience. And it was so well received that and then we followed up throughout the year with more professional development. But we found that the next year when we went for the next stage of this with a cowboy theme, singing songs around the campfire, which was a red light bulb, but people really enjoyed it, and there was a bond that started to take place. And what we really did realize is that with pure intent to help others, we could turn the reality of expense into a perception that it's an investment. And then that becomes the reality that we're investing in our folks. So apathy. Well, I don't know what to say about that. But we did find that apathy was not the reality. Why weren't people showing? It's not that they didn't care. We dug a little deeper, and Amy was wonderful in reaching out personally to so many program directors, wanting to know why their teachers weren't coming, and to teachers themselves. And what we discovered was this next topic. Most of it was due to lack of awareness. Now, I've been a program director, and I know that there's never enough time. There's so many things going on. But we used to rely on directors to hand out the information to their teachers. What we found was that many of them, it never went any further. They didn't put it in the break rooms or the mailboxes. So many teachers didn't know what was happening. They didn't know that we had a PD portal. And we took that on. We owned that ourselves. That, as I said, we did a lot more outreach, thanks to Amy's work, directly to teachers to make them feel engaged and that the state office was there for them. And so that has really changed our participation levels. So those were some of the things. So there may be things happening in your state that you think are reality, and they might to some degree, but is it a bigger problem in people's minds, and what can you do to overcome them? So I hope that was of some help. And the next slide, we're going to answer some big questions. So like questions about who are we? Where are we? Maine is in the United States. My daughter went to college in another state, which will stay nameless. She was asked if she wanted her check cashed in Canadian money or US money. So, no, we are in the United States. This guy, this handsome guy on this statue, there's this image on your slide of a 31-foot statue of a big guy in green pants and a black and red check wool jacket, is not the Jolly Green Giant in winter clothing. This is Paul Bunyan. And Paul Bunyan is the greatest woodsman who never lived. Now, in complete disclosure here, I know that Wisconsin and Minnesota also claim Paul as a native son, but I'm saying he's from Maine. And when people from Minnesota or Wisconsin do a presentation for links, they can talk about Paul Bunyan. So let's just get that out of there. But so Maine is sparsely populated. We're the 8th least populated state. We have 22 million acres, and half of that land is unincorporated, so there's no government. There are no services, but there's also no government. But it's a great place to be. 17 million acres of forest, 3,500 miles of dazzling shoreline, and our population of 1.362 million. To give you a little bit of context about that, Los Angeles has 3.9 million people in only 321,000 acres. So our people are spread out, but we are working here. I think maybe it's COVID or the long winters, but we have Our birth rate went up for the first time since 2015 over the last year. And a lot of people are moving to Maine because of the location here. And that presents challenges because of this distance of our state for people to access services and also to find people to teach. So we do acknowledge those challenges. But this is a great place to be, and just looking at your state geographically and with the topography can be something to help you overcome your needs to hire part-time teachers. Next. Okay, so here we are. Here are our learners, our NRS learners of 4,057. We lost several thousand during COVID, and we have an additional about 2,000 learners in workforce and our college transition program. But our adult basic ed students of 1,723, adult secondary at 944. Like many of you, that number is growing because of high school dropouts, recent ones who've come to us. English language acquisition at 1,300, and that's a growing population in Maine, which puts the pressure on us now to try to have ESL teachers, English language acquisition teachers, so we're growing our own. We're starting training programs that Amy will be overseeing to just teach people who have had no experience to be able to serve our new population here. And then integrated English literacy and civics education, we have 90 learners. So then we'll go into the instructors. So we lost quite a few instructors due to COVID. And so of our current 714 instructors, 624 are part-time. So that's just about all of our teachers are part-time. Many of them have other jobs, but we like to look at the upside of having part-time staff. We believe that we want to capitalize on their enthusiasm to be with us when they have time. Many of these people, like I said, have other jobs, but they feel drawn, just like we do, to the field of adult education. So we want to try to provide that best experience for them, even with those challenges and perceptions that you all mentioned on your in the Menti. But look at this one, less than 1 year experience, 265 of our teachers. So they're just new. Many of them have replaced those teachers who left during COVID. We had teachers who didn't have any internet access at home. Talk about that rural nature of our state. So we're excited to have them. And again, it's about making this a fantastic experience, listening to their needs, being flexible and responsive to the training that we provide. 1 to 3 years of experience, we currently just have 64, but then more than 3 years experience, 295. And interestingly enough, those part-time teachers are just as challenging to address as the first-year teachers. Oftentimes teachers start to get a little in their routines. They don't feel that the professional development is geared toward their needs as more experienced teachers. So Amy has been addressing that, and we lean on them for their expertise to try to get them to come out and be trainers for us. So though we have this, we see this as a fantastic workforce situation to have with our part-time people who are flexible and want to be with us. We also have instructor certification that is required to teach the credit-bearing classes, and that's handled by the Department of Education. So we'll go on to the administrative strategies. So like many of you, we do include in our state and federal grants, we require that at least 12 hours of paid professional development be provided to each staff member. And that is not based on how part-time you are or full-time. We don't want to say if you work only a few hours, then you just get this little tiny sliver. It's not prorated. You are as valuable as the full-time teachers, and you need that 12 hours. In our state grants, we have the luxury of including professional development as allowable expense, which means we can support travel and registration costs. And what we've done lately as well in the last few years is these for out of state and regional training, it's for teachers. This money is to send your teachers, not just administrators to go. We want those teachers to have those opportunities. And then we ask that they come back and share with the other teachers in their geographic area. So we're really excited that it's opened up more teacher opportunities for travel to national and regional conferences. And then for our more intensive professional development, we do pay stipends for folks because of the amount of time. And then there's usually an opportunity for them to come back and share and teach others. So we're also, I think part of it is not just having these policies in place, but being purposeful about encouraging people to attend and engage. So we're going to have another mentee, another question. It's going to go similar. Do you want to take it away on this, Amy?
Sure. So here's our final. We're going to go to the next question. So again, you should, if you still have it up on your phone or in your browser, see the second question. What administrative strategies does your state employ to address supporting your part-time staff? And once you enter your response, you should have a little box so you can put more than a word or a phrase. Hit enter and they should start popping up on the screen. Separate PD funding. And feel free to also put in the chat. If you don't have access to the Menti, feel free to add that. Yes, I can put the QR code back up. There you go. All right, all kinds of things coming in. Another place that offers 12 hours of PD, teacher recognition, regional trainings, PD facilitators, reimbursement, professional organization membership, limited PD and professional learning opportunities, required new teacher orientation, conferencing, paid mileage, grant contracts, 23 hours for new teachers. I'm wondering if whoever put that one in, what do you consider new teachers? Is it in the first year or in the first couple of years? Annual conferences. Great. It's great to see a lot of PD. Oh, 10% of funds. I've heard, I don't know who put that in, but I heard that the other day, that requiring 10% of funds to be for PD. Excellent. Give you about 1 more minute. Great. And I see people are starting to put in some other ideas of strategies that they're using for professional development too. And Bev put in the chat that in Arizona, 10% of grant funds must be expended for effective standards-based professional learning. Money for special projects, mini PD budgets. Excellent. Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing that. I'm going to go away from this for right now and back over here.
All right. Well, I really appreciate, I didn't see huge numbers of people drop off while I was speaking, but for the opportunity to share with you some of the things that we've done in Maine. It's probably not groundbreaking, but for us, we've seen that it's the self-reflection, and perhaps some of the things that were shared will give you some new insights or just ideas that pop into your head about, well, maybe we can try something that may not even be directly what I talked about, but gave you a thought about an approach that might help you with your part-time teachers. As I said, in Maine, we cherish them because it's most of who we have. And we try to nurture them, let them know they're heard. And I think you'll just love hearing some of the things that Amy's been doing with and for our teachers. Appreciate having this opportunity. I honor you for the work that you do. And I'm going to turn this over to Amy.
Thanks, Gail, and thanks everyone for participating in the mentees so far. I appreciate it. I'm going to spend a little bit of time now talking about specifically strategies that we've used in our professional development system. And Gail's addressed our challenges and a few of the things that we've done so far to kind of meet the needs of our part-time staff. And I'm going to share a few more specifics related specifically to professional development. But first, I'm going to make a confession. And my confession is that nothing that I'm sharing today is really new. In fact, much of what we do is adapted from great ideas from my PD colleagues around the country, and many of you I see on this call today. And so I thank you for your great ideas, because we've taken what we can from other places and tried to make them make it fit what we need in Maine. And a lot of times it comes from attending webinars like this one or participating in the Links PD groups. And so I appreciate the networks that I've been able to develop with colleagues from across the country. So I encourage you to do that if you haven't yet built that network. So there's really no one size fits all approach, especially when you're talking about part-time staff. And so like the paper airplanes in this picture, our educators are all heading in different directions along unique pathways. Their needs are really based on their experiences, their time in the classroom, their pathway into adult education, and their motivations for even being in the room with you. And we know that adult learners need to see relevance and purpose for their learning, and so do our adult educators, because after all, they are also adult learners. And so as a result, we've really taken an intentional approach to developing our professional development opportunities, and also tried to incorporate a variety of different approaches. And I saw some of you mentioning some of those approaches that you're thinking about in the Mentee a few minutes ago. So the first thing, and I'm sure that many of you do this, we really look to the field for input. We need to find out what they believe they need. That's a critical, important first step. So we've developed all staff surveys to collect data on demographics, on challenges that people are facing in their positions, in their ideas and needs in specific content areas, and much more, and sort of analyze that information to help us. Also, our professional development feedback form that we issue after any of our professional development events always includes opportunities for participants to request more information about anything that we've done in the courses or the event, and also to share any ideas that they have for new topics to help us plan. In our year-end narrative reports for state and for federal grants, we collect information about professional development needs and also the plans that the local programs are doing at the local level, so we know what they're already planning for their own professional development. And this input in the many different ways also helps us identify the experts in the field. And as Gail mentioned, we really look to our field to help us as course facilitators. We often ask them to lead the professional development for us. And our PD advisory committee is also another great source of input, and they sort of help us find that middle ground. And I'll talk more about them in a few minutes. Clear learning objectives and outcomes defined. Learning always comes first. It's back to that purpose and relevance. So a few years ago, I began standardizing how we develop and advertise our professional development, especially our online courses. And since I know that our part-time educators and our full-time adult educators, for that matter, have limited time to participate in professional learning, I began to really advertise and include really clear learning objectives and outcomes in all of our course descriptions. I sort of standardized how we articulate what a course is going to be about. it's important that participants really know what they're going to learn and be able to do as a result of the class or the event that they're participating in. I also asked the course facilitators to include a task that would be immediately applicable to the educators' roles in their programs. So there should be actually a product that comes out of the class that could be used in the teaching. So for example, in our social and emotional learning, one of our social and emotional learning classes, participants would create a lesson plan where they were integrating specifically some trauma-informed practices that they had learned in the class. Or in a class about strategies for teaching multilingual learners, participants developed a lesson plan, they taught it, and then they had to complete a reflection and a revision on that lesson plan using something that they learned in the class. Defining these clear objectives and including that job-related product led to a couple of things. Number one, it led to increased motivation because the participants were aware of the clear expectations right up front. They knew what they were going to walk away with at the end of the class. For our part-time and our newer teachers, having a product actually was something they could add to their teaching toolbox. Also, being in a cohort, hearing other people sharing, being able to take other people's tools from their toolbox and have more tools that you could use. And finally, it models the importance of communicating clear objectives and outcomes and relevant content. And I really think one of my goals has been that our professional learning model effective teaching and learning so that when you're participating in professional development, you're seeing strategies and moves that you could also apply to your own teaching in your own classroom. Gail touched on this a little bit, but opportunities for new and veteran teachers. And we have kind of a split, a 50-50 split almost of teachers who have 1 to 3 years of experience and teachers that have more than 3 years of experience. And even those teachers who are in the 1 to 3 year range, they might not be brand new to teaching. They just might be brand new to adult education. But a few years ago, our Professional Development Advisory Committee sort of did an overall analysis of our PD offerings. And one of the things they noticed was that we have had a lot of PD for newer teachers with fewer opportunities for veteran teachers. And Gail touched on this, that idea that there might not be something for them to kind of deepen their practice. Since then, we've made an effort to include opportunities for all teachers. We have introductory classes and things like distance and blended learning, but we also then have something we're calling instructional strategy workshops that are really focused on kind of high leverage practices that are a little bit dig a little bit deeper into your teaching. Any course or opportunity starts with the question, who's the audience for this? And I'm constantly trying to check in to make sure that we're really differentiating our PD for participants and that we're offering for a range of experiences. This summer, we're planning a multilingual summer institute at Sugarloaf. So it'll be a little bit, it's a ski resort. So it's a little bit nicer than a dorm room and dorm food. Beautiful view of the mountain and hopefully some s'mores. But as we're planning this, it's been really important also for that our newest teachers of multilingual learners will gain something from the experience, but that also our veteran teachers of multilingual learners will also come to this and have that experience. And we've worked with our presenter to make sure that the content is going to be scaffolded so that everyone will feel like they are walking away with a really meaningful experience. Variety of models for synchronous and asynchronous learning. I mean, I've heard many of you who are here today talking about how you've done this kind of thing in your work over the last 2 years. I think we all have really been thinking about this variety of models. The opportunities that we offer even before the pandemic are a combination of synchronous and asynchronous events, and almost exclusively online at this point, either on Zoom or using Schoology. And I'll talk more about Schoology in a minute. For synchronous events, we have been doing things like we'll have a kickoff webinar, and then there'll be online work in the middle, and then maybe a wrap up at the end. Or we've tried to cluster our synchronous times on a couple of days in a row, or a couple of, 2 Tuesdays in a row or something like that. And it allows for people to kind of count on it and schedule it a little bit easier. Our asynchronous opportunities are a combination of on-demand and self-paced classes, and then facilitated online classes. And when I started at the state office, most of our online classes were 8 weeks long, and about 2 to 3 hours a week. And retention was about 50%, maybe. That was just a long time for people to commit to taking a class. So we now have moved to what we're calling mini courses, where they're really just short 2 to 3 weeks. They still might be 2 to 3 hours a week, but they're quick and done. And we've taken those longer classes and kind of broken them into modules so that people can take a module here and there. It also allows a part-time teacher to participate at a time that fits in their schedule, and it allows them to plan ahead. And the courses are often repeated each semester. So for example, if you miss it in the fall, you know you'll be able to take it again in the spring time. Options to attend in person or remote. Again, Gail touched on this a little bit, but as we move back to in-person events, we continue to offer the option for people to attend remotely. And that is to help with the distance, and especially for part-time teachers, not being able to have to give up that time to travel, several hours to get to the meeting. Our department actually upgraded all of our meeting rooms to include technology so that now participants at a distance can actually hear what's happening in the room. They can see what's happening in the room, and it's really made such a huge difference. It also allows us to model using the HighFlex model, which is something that we know many of our local programs are having to implement as well right now. So it's given us a chance to kind of show them, this is how we're thinking about it, this is how we're doing it. And I will tell you, we were groundbreakers, like in 2018, maybe even 2017, we did a HighFlex model where we had a group of teachers in Aroostook County in very northern Maine. And we were doing the adult numeracy instruction series, and we had a group of teachers in northern Maine, and then we had a group in Augusta and central Maine with the facilitator. And we used Zoom way back then. And we learned a lot about what we could and couldn't do. And so it's, I think it's possible. It just takes someone who's confident with the tech, and it takes flexibility on everyone's part, but it can work. And I think it really, now we're even in a better spot for that. Finally, flexible scheduling. Finding a time that works for everyone is an impossibility. I think everyone on this call knows that. So really it is about our teachers are working other jobs, sometimes in the day school. And one of the things that a big change I've made is I've started offering a lot of our sessions at this time of the afternoon, usually in the mid to late afternoon. It kind of falls before evening classes, or it's after work is over for the day, and there's sort of this gap. And as a result, I've seen a real increase in participation by moving things to a mid to late afternoon. We also try to be consistent with our schedules. So especially for webinars and office hours, our monthly tech webinars are offered on the second and the last Friday of the month. And then also we offer office hours for people to get together, and those are also offered at the same time each month. Making materials accessible to our teachers anytime and anywhere is another approach that's worked well for us. We have a subscription to Schoology, and I think there are other states, I know there are a few other states that are using Schoology for their professional development. This Schoology is a learning management system. We've been using it for about 8 years in Maine. It's very easy to navigate and very user-friendly. It looks a little like Facebook even, so I think it's easier for people to kind of find their way around it. We use it for our professional development courses, but we also allow local programs to use it for their own classes for their students. And it's also, I'm not getting paid by Schoology, but I have to say it's also a pretty good deal because the seats are transferable. So if someone's not active, you can reassign the seat to another person. So it makes it pretty cost effective. As I noted on the last slide, our courses are both self-paced and facilitated. And one of the great things about Schoology for self-paced courses, we set course completion rules. So we can actually control people's path through the course and ensure that they've been engaged with it and that they've actually done the work. Also with the self-paced classes, they can do them at any time. So for part-time teachers, that works really well for them to be able to work through it. Most of our self-paced courses are also developed to take no more than 3 to 4 hours to complete. And actually that's 4 hours is like the longest one. Most of them are only 1 or 2 hours to complete. And in a nod to Pennsylvania, thank you, Pennsylvania, most of our CCRS, our college and career readiness standards introductory courses are self-paced. We also have self-paced classes in digital citizenship, distance learning basics, and learner accessibility. The facilitated courses are designed by people from the field for the most part, and we work hard together to make sure we're modeling best practices for online learning. And that's come after time. Schoology allows for grading and has grading settings. It really was built for K-12, but it works in this way as well. And so we've worked hard with facilitators to sort of learn about sharing expectations with participants, how to grade when you're not grade, but kind of give feedback when you are a course facilitator and that sort of thing. But I think it's going well. Our Schoology also includes several topic specific groups where we share resources and also build community. And on the slide, you'll see a screenshot of some of our groups. We have a group we called State Office Technical Assistance. That's really where we share any webinars that we've done as a state office, any documents or guidance that people might need that are sort of general information. We share a lot of our PD recordings in that area. PD Advisory Committee, this is a private group you can take in Schoology and set like who can join. So we have some groups, also the teaching skills that matter. Those are kind of closed groups that were just available to people who are part of those particular groups. HiSET is just what it looks like. That's where a lot of our HiSET program information is about, but also our HiSET coordinator has developed an on-demand training. So as soon as someone starts as a new HiSET administrator in the state, we send them straight to this group and they can get the training that they need to get up and running. So that's been a nice feature. Blended Learning is actually a Schoology group. Schoology has a lot of groups that you can join as well, and then IELCE, and we have many, many more than that. The groups act as repositories for webinar recordings, relevant state guidance, forms and documents, and other resources that help with working in adult education in Maine. Each group also has events and updates. So we're able to share quick updates or information with group members, and people can change their notifications. So it shoots them an email if an update is added to a group. But more importantly, the groups have built community. And a couple of examples in our data group, for example, if someone has a question about like the intake form or the student information system, they'll ask it in the updates section, and then they can quickly get an answer from a colleague. And our state team monitors for accuracy, but often they'll get a quicker answer if they put it in the Schoology group because people get a notification and they'll get an answer from someone in the field rather than submitting a ticket. In our Maine College and Career Access group, one of our local coordinators has organized a whole webinar series of employer informational sessions. And in the group, she'll go in and she's invited her colleagues and their learners to attend the group. So it's been a really nice sharing situation for people. There are drawbacks, I will say, and I know that others have had this issue, just organizing resources and pointing people to the right spot, trying to figure out how many groups are too many groups and that sort of thing. So we're still working on refining it, but the groups are a great way for our part-time people to find what they need when they need it and have a place that they can connect with other people. In addition to Schoology, we also share relevant resources with the field, especially those that are kind of ready-made and high quality. Our hope is that this will promote rigorous and high quality teaching, and it also gives part-time educators materials that they can implement immediately. Teaching skills that matter has been a primary focus of our PD over the last year, and we've promoted this toolkit and lessons as a resource for all staff, especially our part-time staff. We've really kind of showed that this is a tool that could be very helpful to them in their classroom. We'll also continue to promote TSTM this year, and it'll be the basis of much of the work that we do, and I'll share more about that at the end of my time. Memberships, we have a membership to the IDEAL Consortium through the Ed Tech Center, and also we have a state membership for the Change Agent. They all both provide excellent resources for the field. Our IDEAL membership gives us access to self-paced courses in blended learning, open educational resources. We can also access other professional development through our membership that we can import into Schoology or access any facilitation from their consultants. We've actually worked with our colleagues in New Hampshire to kind of co-offer some classes together, which has been great. The Change Agent, I don't know if people are familiar with the Change Agent. It is a publication that's produced by NELRC, and please don't ask me what that stands for. It's New England Literacy Resource Center, I believe. And it includes articles that are written by adult education students, and they address current issues. Each issue has a theme, and it is a great resource. I used it when I taught in the classroom as well, and our teachers are able to access the Change Agent for use in their classroom. And Change Agent has added lots of different types of resources to go with their articles now. So that's a resource that we offer. Maine is a local control state, so we can't mandate specific curriculum, but we can offer tools for programs to use. So we've also purchased several curricula, such as IC3, which is a digital literacy curriculum, the World of Work Inventory, which is a career assessment, and most recently NGen, which is an English language learning platform. And all of these tools are really ensuring that our programs that have part-time staff and really limited resources, that they still have access to that high quality curricula that will enhance their programming. In 2017, Maine regionalized its local programs into 9 hubs, and you'll see on this map our 9 hubs. They're loosely organized around counties and workforce board regions, and our intent was to really encourage collaboration under WIOA. Some of the hubs are collaborating really well, others are still growing and figuring it out even 5 years later. But the hubs really provide an awesome mechanism for supporting professional development regionally. When our programs closed for in-person learning in March of 2020, we looked for a way to support the field through their transition to remote services. So we used some state funding to work with the hubs to develop continuity of services plans. It was a really guided process for them to really think about, what are we going to do if we have to go to this emergency remote learning? How are we going to do intake? How are we going to communicate with students and with teachers? What does teaching look like? What does assessment look like? How are we going to provide the supports that people need? We encouraged the hubs to identify teams to do this work, and we asked them not to have it be all program directors. We asked them to really look at the diversity of roles in their programs and to make sure that teachers, advisors, support staff were all part of it. I will tell you, and I don't think that anyone would argue with me on this, that the continuity of services plans really moved that work of hub collaboration forward more than anything else we had done since 2017. I think having teachers involved was a big part of it, to be honest. But anyway, as a result of this work, 6 of the 9 hubs established hub community of practices or professional development committees. Supporting their staff became a priority. They suddenly said, hey, we need to do this work locally. And they were doing it as a hub, as a regional hub. So for our office, these regional communities and committees provide an opportunity. They are defining their PD needs. They are ensuring that their staff are getting what they need. And so we can now learn from them and support them. It really is about communicating with them and not competing. Our PD isn't competing with their PD, but it's supporting and aligning with what they're doing. We also started a statewide professional development advisory committee, and that has just been another important link in our support of part-time staff. They are adult educators from across the state. They serve in different roles in their programs. Some of them are part-time educators themselves, and they're really the gut check on what we plan at the state office. They kind of sit me down when I get too up here. They let me know whether it's going to work or not. And their experience in the field really helps us make sure that what we're doing is reasonable and needed. We have lots of conversations about what's going to work. Finally, and Gail touched on this a little bit with her talking about the pirates and the cowboys, that we finally promote the train the trainer model in most of our larger PD efforts. It started with the college and career readiness standards trainings, but we've also looked at it with the English language proficiency standards, and then most recently with the teaching skills that matter. So like that raindrop that's hitting the puddle and kind of rippling out everywhere, we allow for the content to kind of ripple out from the state trainings down to the local level. We have started to encourage that hubs send at least one representative to participate in their professional development. And we also offer support for implementation. So this approach allows the hubs to customize their PD to their needs and also to focus on aspects that really align with their goals. We don't necessarily control the message. We thought about that, we wanted things to be just so, but then we also said, wait a minute, we need to let them, make sure it's going to fit what their needs are. So for example, this past year, teachers who participated in our Teaching Skills That Matter project worked together to think about how they were going to take the TSTM back to their hubs. Our facilitation team is going to provide ongoing support to them throughout the year. So they'll have regular meetings to kind of problem solve and share. We'll provide materials for the trainings that they might need and help assist them in the development of next steps. And this is not a requirement for them to do that. We don't require that they use TSTM. But we offered it to those who are interested in taking it back. And I will say it's almost everyone has wanted to take it back to their hubs. And I think that speaks a lot to the actual TSTM toolkit, but also to the power of the professional development that they participated in the last year. They wanted to share more. So those are just some of the moves that we've made to make sure our PD is accessible to our part-time educators. And I would love to hear more specifics from you all about what you're doing. So I have another Menti. The third question is, what professional development strategies are you using to support your part-time educators? So maybe it's some of the ones that I've shared, again, because I know I took some of them from you. But what are some other things that people are doing to support part-time educators? And again, you can also put it in the chat if you don't want to do a Menti. So I'd love to hear from you. I love the idea of book groups. That's something that we have coming up next year, is a book group from a book called Onward, where it's a monthly, every month is a reflection. It's about teacher resilience, shorter and targeted PD, Google Classroom organizing, lead teachers. Yeah, I love that idea. 2-part PD activities, web shop, assignment and sharing webinar. That model, it reminds me of the Kentucky model that I remember hearing about, that we've sort of modeled our instructional strategies workshop off from that same idea. Communities of practice, regular meetings, shorter and targeted PD, new readers press online platform. I'm not familiar with that. Managing your time and data. align as much as possible with K-12. So we reinforce. I like that, Maureen, too. Varied time and offerings over a span of days. Regular newsletter. That's a goal of mine, newsletter. PLCs in each local agency and program. Great. Thank you so much for sharing. We'll check back in after. So I just want to talk a little bit about what's next for us. I thought I'd wrap up with some next thoughts. It's really about, for us, it's about increasing access, equity, and quality. And we're focusing on 3 primary approaches: building connections, developing clear pathways, and sort of refining our approaches. So building connections really is about how can we continue to support and leverage the work that's happening regionally. We know that it's happening regionally, so what's the best way to help out? We want to make sure that we're offering opportunities for all, especially for those 3 hubs that are not participating, don't have a PD committee. So we want to make sure that there's availability for them to build connections as well. Developing clear pathways. How can we develop professional development pathways that really lead to effective teaching and learning and are motivating? And so I'm thinking about structuring and sequencing of professional development to deepen learning. And then finally, to refine our approaches. How can we make sure that what is needed really is what is needed? Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So are the courses that we already are requiring, are they necessary? And since part-time educators' time is so limited, how are we really going to maximize their PD time? I have one director who is constantly, I think every time we meet in the PD committee, she brings up about how does she decide what are the things that she needs to pay her, what should she pay for with the 12 hours of paid PD time that she has, and wanting to make sure that she's really reinforcing the right things with her teachers. So here are just a few of my plans for the future, or my hopes for the future. We really need to formalize those processes for communicating with the hub community of practices or professional development committees. And one idea that I have is to identify a hub coordinator or like a lead teacher. And I know some states have PD specialists or PD facilitators, they call them. To identify a hub coordinator who will be the person who will communicate and work with the state office. There are really great things that are happening at the hub level. And so we need to find better ways or more ways for cross-hub sharing. During the pandemic, our educators have really appreciated opportunities to build community with others outside of their hub. You've got the teacher in Northern Maine who is the teacher in their program, the part-time teacher in their program, and they're teaching everything. And they really appreciate the conversation with the teacher in the program in Waldo County, Maine, on the mid-coast, and having the opportunity to sort of talk with each other. That's something that has been brought up over and over, that people like that experience. So we need to find ways to continue to do that, and to be able to collaborate across the hubs. Again, we also want to make sure that the educators in the hubs that aren't as effective at collaborating also have access to high quality opportunities and time to share with others. And then finally, we need to increase communication. Increasing communication will help us make sure that our state professional development supports the hub goals for PD and their educators' needs. It's really, rather than duplicating efforts and recreating the wheel so that everyone's doing the same thing over and over again, let's work together and try to find the most effective ways for doing the work. The next one, the developing clear pathways, I'm going to confess is like the one that I'm really, really excited about the most. As a skier, I just think of this as like the green circles, the blue squares, and the black diamonds. So we are currently implementing professional learning, which is a product of PowerSchool that integrates with Schoology. It will replace our current PD portal. And one of its biggest selling points for me is that you can create PD playlists. So it would be, you can create a playlist of professional learnings. For example, we might create a distance or a blended learning playlist that includes the courses and resources that give someone the things they need to really basically understand distance or blended learning. Or you could take the blue square that deepens your practice just a little bit more. Or if you really wanted to be the expert of distance and blended learning, you might take the black diamond PD playlist that really gets to the core of the content. Another idea would be one for college and career readiness standards, or one that might be, for example, focused on data-driven decision-making. So I see lots of potential with these PD playlists and helping us develop pathways. As we develop the pathways, we're also looking for opportunities to offer badging or micro-credentials around professional development. And we'll also continue to align our work with the adult education teacher competencies from links and putting our focus on the competencies rather than the hours of participation. And so Gail talked a little bit about teacher certification. Right now, to renew your certification, you need 90 contact hours, but it would be really nice to be able to have that aligned with competencies rather than thinking about hours, especially as we move to professionalizing the field. And professional learning also allows us to link our professional development to competencies. So we'll also be able to make sure that we're hitting all parts of the teacher competencies in our offerings as well. Finally, we need to refine our approaches. We'll look at our delivery models and design with part-time teachers in mind. If PD time is limited, then we need to think about how our required PD think about our required PD and the time it takes for them to complete. When you have 12 hours of paid PD each year, do we want all of that time taken up with the college and career readiness standards, or do we want them to be able to have the opportunity to engage in other opportunities that lead to effective teaching strategies? Just an example, we're working on teaching skills that matter for next year, and we're developing a training specifically for part-time teachers. And the plan is to have a kickoff during the summer and then have shorter workshops throughout the year. Most of our teachers are also teaching every subject at every level. So rather than focusing on content-specific PD, we're looking at focusing on the big ideas about teaching and learning. Content will be the vehicle through which we explore the high leverage practices that make the most impact. So I'm sorry I'm talking about TSTM so much, but that really is our focus right now. So we're thinking about focusing on something such as like formative assessment and really building practices around and improving practice around formative assessment. And we'll use the TSTM toolkit to help us teach those concepts or work with the field on those concepts. Hopefully, by building these hub connections and creating pathways and continuing to be intentional about what we require and offer, we'll continue to see participation increase and a positive impact on our learners. And with that, I say thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions or hear more from you all about what you're doing.
Amy, thank you very much. This has been really valuable, and it kind of gets my mind thinking in all different kinds of directions. So I appreciate all of the time and effort that you and Gail have put into this.
Thank you, Maureen.
Well worth the time.
And I was referring to you when I was talking about those Schoology groups, because I know you did a lot of work on figuring out how your Schoology groups were going to work in Delaware.
Yeah, we're getting it down.
Hey, there's a question in the chat from Jose. I really like how you target different ways to support teachers and staff. What would be the sweet spot in regards to categories and groups in Schoology?
I think that's the $1 million question for me. I think that because of the organization part of it, I think we all know that if we get too many emails, notifications, it becomes noise. And so trying to find the number of groups that are not going to be too much noise. And so I've struggled with whether we should have a high set group and a math group and an English group, or should we just have a Maine adult education practitioner group with everything underneath that? So that's my my struggle right now, is trying to figure out what's the best way to do that. So I don't have an answer to that. I'm still trying to figure it out.
There's also a question from Hillary. Can you say anything more about how you've reached out to teachers directly, especially in areas that are geographically distant from you, instead of just directors or managers?
So we have a listserv that I have really intentionally worked hard to make sure teachers join that listserv. Because as Gail said, what we found out is that a lot of the directors were not passing professional development information along. And so the listserv has become my main vehicle for sharing professional development experiences or upcoming events. So I've worked hard to do that. My statewide PD advisory committee also intentionally includes people from Aroostook County to York County, top to bottom of Maine. And those people are really important to this process as well, because they are kind of the champions of the professional development. So they're helping me get the word out about things, and they're also helping make sure that teachers are engaged in their areas, and the hubs have helped with that also. So even those geographically distanced areas, if you get one champion in each hub, they're going to help you get the word out to the rest of the groups or the rest of the teachers in that area.
I would just like to add on that, as well as right before COVID struck, we had decided that, I don't know, we all wanted to be in a rock band at one point. So we were going to go out on tour, and we scheduled meetings with all of the hubs. So we went out there, and a part of that was to meet the teachers, to have time when we didn't just meet with the directors, but the administrative staff, and to meet with teachers and to develop those personal relationships. When COVID came, we had one that we kind of finished using technology, but it just wasn't the same. So I'm hoping that the team will be able to get back on the road in the future, because then it just develops more of a relationship. So even though we're spread out, that's a challenge, but the perception of the distance, I think, is larger in our heads than just going out and meeting folks. So that's how we try to develop that as well.
And I see Dawn is talking about the newsletter. And I love the idea of a newsletter, and it's definitely on my goal list of things to do. We do a weekly In Case You Missed It, where we kind of highlight what's been going on during the week in our office and what things that people need to know, and include professional development as part of that. And it goes out to the listserv. So as long as teachers are part of that listserv, they are going to see that. But a newsletter has been something that's been on my to-do list for a while.
Amy, there's another question from Laura. How do you handle tutoring for adult learners in Maine? Do you have a centralized state-supported online tutoring vehicle, or do your local programs provide tutoring on their own?
That's the local programs provide the tutoring on their own. It's part of that local control.
The local control is real. I think in the last few years, the state office has tried to really, that intentionality of collaborating with the local programs a lot more and listening to them. and being a bit less directive on what we're doing so that it becomes more of a collaboration in decision making.
And I like that idea of having new teachers, of registering teachers for new teacher orientation. We have an online self-paced class about adult education called Navigating the Waters that we had some people update last year. It's pretty heavy. There's a lot to know in adult education. So I'm anxious to get our PD playlists up because I think that is something we could do as a playlist instead of having it be one long course, so that people kind of pick away at it over time. So I'm eager to work on improving our new teacher orientation because I think there's a definite need for it.
And Maureen shared, as part of our RFP, all programs must register their teachers for new teacher orientation. The names of new teachers are added throughout the year. This worked especially well since all teachers had to use Schoology during COVID. All right, well, if there are no more questions, then I want to thank you, Amy and Gail, for sharing and providing insight into what you are doing in Maine to support your teachers. I know I learned a lot. I've some great ideas, things that I want to look into a little bit more. We can go to the next slide. We wanted to find out from all of you if you are, how we can continue to support you on this topic. Are you interested in continued support around this? If you could please complete the poll, just let us know yes, maybe, or not right now. We know that you're all very busy and have some competing priorities. All right, and as we are wrapping up that poll, I did want to share that we we're continuing to provide technical assistance and training opportunities to states. This is part of our universal level of technical assistance, but we're happy to work with individual states to help you meet your needs and build your capacity around topics that are of interest to you. So if you want to reach out, Long provided the link to request technical assistance. So I hope that you'll reach out and let us know how we can continue to help you meet your needs in your state. I also, along those same lines, wanted to share with you some new links courses that we have out. The ACP Building Strategic Partnerships Engaging Employers course, ACP Building a Bridge to Adult Career Pathways, ACP Instructional Considerations for Adult Career Pathways, and last but not least, Teaching Adult English Learners Principles and Practices, which is really exciting because that's going to be the topic of next month's webinar. You'll see on the slide, we also have the QR code that you can use to join a course if you're interested in checking that out. As I mentioned, next month's webinar will be on teaching adult English learners principles and practices. That will take place on June 29th, 2022. Our presenter will be Betsy Parrish from Hamline University. It will take place again at 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern, or for those of you on the West Coast, that's noon to 1:30 p.m. Pacific. Hope you'll register now using the link that Long provided in the chat. And to make sure that we're meeting your needs, as always, that's our primary goal. If you could please respond in the chat to this question. What questions about teaching adult English learners do you have? We want to make sure that we address those in next month's webinar. As you think about those, and type those into the chat. I do want to thank you for attending today's webinar. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Amy, once again. It was absolutely wonderful to hear from both of you. And thank you to our audience for participating and being so engaged. I look forward to hearing more about what you're doing as you continue to work on this very challenging but very important topic. Thanks, everyone.